If you can find your seats, we'll get started here in a minute. It's a big group today. Who's having fun this weekend? We had a wonderful celebration with the 50th anniversary folks last night, and boy, they were partying it up, I know. Congratulations to all of them. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I have a lot to share with you today. It's my annual alumni update. I love doing this talk every year to tell you all the great things that are going on at Miami. So let's go ahead and get started. That's a picture of Bachelor Hall. This is my 10th year anniversary, and so this talk is a little bit about looking back and looking forward, because you're going to have both aspects, both elements of that today. And so you're going to be pretty impressed with some numbers that you hear around sustainability, the scale and size of our endowment, the progress on our campaign, and so forth. So I'm going to go through this with you systematically, and it's a bit in chronological order. So we'll go from there. I'm going to talk about the following: preparing for the future, and what we're looking at a little bit in higher ed there. We're going to look at investing in the future, so what we did the last 5 years and how that's progressed. And then discovering the future and sustaining the future, just about what we're doing now, which is called Miami Thrive, which you'll hear more about. And also our sustainability efforts are just second to none around higher education. And we'll talk about athletics, and we'll talk about empowering the future and some of the great things that our students are doing. So that's the overall talking points for today. So let's start with preparing for the future. Who's read an article about higher ed lately? Probably wasn't very good, was it? No. So there's a lot of competition going on in higher ed, and many have used this quote in some way, shape, or form, and it says, oh, higher ed is not built for a world that exists today. And then there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek to that, but there's no doubt there's truth to that as well, because things are changing so quick, from semiconductors to artificial intelligence, to cybersecurity, and just different things that we both are educating students around, but also things we deal with daily. And so this is my picture of the future from AI. I put in there, I want it to look like a semiconductor chip, and I want AI in there, and I want all kinds of stuff going on. So that's the future it looks like to me. Here's the one thing I just want you to take away as you think about what your alma mater is doing. And it's a little bit about the higher education landscape that we're working on today. So if this is enrollment, so we talk about the demographic cliff, so fewer high school kids, and then this is today is in the middle, and this is time on this axis. There's no doubt we call this phase the surge, and so for many decades, certainly post-World War II, then the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of growth, and it continued into the 90s and the early 2000s until we hit that recession. And so there was a surge in higher ed. And then what we're saying today is that's called sort of the sorting phase. And so today it's now to a point where we're turning over. We're going to have less high school students every year going out to 2040 than we had the previous year. And it's interesting to note that when you look at schools that are closing down that you're reading about, they keep talking about the demographics, but it's not that yet. We're just turning the demographics over now. What's happened is students' interests change. They want to go more towards professional degrees and those kind of things, STEM, business, and so forth. And so when that happened, some schools weren't ready for that. They didn't offer what students wanted. And now starting this year, we're going to turn over, and I'm going to call it the squeeze, because it's going to happen, and we're going to see a couple of different things happen. Schools that are weaker are going to try to discount their tuition such that they get students in the seats. And then the stronger schools, like Miami, we may discount, but we're going to grab market share too. And so we're going to go hard and try to really improve our position as well. And independent upon that, it means more competition. Then the separation piece in the future, there's going to be winners and losers, and you already see it today. There's been over 300 schools closed in the past 5 or 6 years. And so there's a lot of change going on. So as you look at Miami, what you're going to hear today, you got to keep this in mind that we're kind of sorting through right now, and it's going to be squeezed as these demographics, we start to get less and fewer high school graduates. So If you were in the Prodesi group yesterday, you probably saw Bachelor Hall, but I'll talk about this in a second, but that's one of our newest spaces. And so what I'm going to talk about today is some really big things that we've worked on. And I want to just mention a few things that I'm not going to speak about in great detail, but I want you to know about it. And that is, in a time when you're working and competing across the country for students, great programs and everything are really important. But the very nature of how you manage your budgets and how disciplined you are is super important. So you can be assured that your alma mater is doing a great job there. We have a fantastic finance team. We're very lean, and we do things the right way, and we look at everything that we spend, and we're very prudent, but at the same time, we do things at the highest quality. And I just wanted to mention that because we're not going to talk about that in great detail, but we're going to talk about all these different things from partnerships to our strategic investments. And so the growth progression, when you look at it, if this is progress of an institution on one side, and this is the time down there on that axis, we love to make investments at Miami that give us like a leapfrog jump, a transformational jump up and growth. And so we've done a lot of that. Kind of at a minimum, we want sustained growth. And obviously, we don't want to start anything new or make investments in anything that are going to be stagnant or decline. But when you think about it and the challenges in higher ed with fewer demographics, right now, there's even some that are thinking they need to invest just to stay equal and the same and sustain things. And so it's a bit of a dynamic market right now. So we want to be in this place where we make investments and then really great things happen. And it doesn't take time because you just get a big jump and you leapfrog above the others. And so here we go. And when you think about Miami's progress on their strategies, there was three of them. The first was Miami 2020 that was done after the recession. It was very tactical, but it was exactly what Miami needed to really focus in on quality of students, and we pushed hard on the public Ivy, did that. And then in 2019 to 2024 was Miami Rise, and I'm going to talk about that because all those elements have finished up. And then, of course, this is the big one, Miami Thrive, which is our brand new strategic plan. And we're going to blow you away with some of the stuff that we're doing here at Miami. It's very exciting. So first, we'll do Miami Rise. So started in 2019, and we had great investment and a lot of confidence from our board of trustees to do big things. So the one big effort was the McVeigh Data Sciences building. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go see it. It's a real treat. We had a little event in there yesterday as well. And it's focused in on data science, statistics, emerging technology, business and design, and also computer science and software engineering. And we built this because Rick McVeigh, a fantastic alum, a golfer back in the early 80s here at Miami, his company is a finance company, and then it turned out that several hundred of his employees at one point were all finance, and over the years, half of them became data scientists and computer scientists that they needed for finance. And so he wanted Miami to lead. And it did just that. And in a short 2 years, when you make these investments, it was more than data science. It let us grow into all kinds of other areas. I'm going to talk about quantum computing later on, my favorite. Artificial intelligence, we have a new degree there. Data science was what it was built for. And then cybersecurity, a new degree there, both in engineering and in business. And then robotics, we had the first robotics engineering program in this state. And so it opened up all kinds of new doors just because we made that investment that we didn't necessarily see when we made that investment. So we're grateful to Rick for showing us the way, and then all the sort of leapfrogging that we did in other areas. And the Honors College. We love this one because it's a great story. So Miami needed an honors college. We had a program, and everybody agreed on that. It's very rare in higher ed you get agreement on anything, but that one we did. And we started, it was a #1 recommendation in that plan, and we get this thing started, and our ambition was maybe 500 students we get into this program. Over time, so it's been now, we're in our 5th year, and it is now it's 2,000 students plus. the average GPA is 4.4 coming from high school. And I always love this story because I was doing an alumni event and somebody raised their hand after I spoke about the Honors College, and they're like, oh my God, I'm a Miami merger and our combined GPA wasn't 4.4. But the cool thing, Zeb Baker, our dean, has done a fantastic job. We're number 5 in the country now. So we came out of nowhere. We weren't even ranked. We didn't even have a college. And now this is a very robust ranking for honors, too. They take a lot of quantitative metrics, and we're number 5. So very exciting. And then Pearson Hall, if you haven't seen that, that was done right before the pandemic. It all finished up, but it's biology, microbiology. And we have more than 1,000 pre-med majors here in Miami. We like to brag about it because we don't have a medical school, but we make a lot of doctors. And they get great placements, and so it's been a great tradition for Miami. And then there is this, we're going to come back to this as well, the Clinical Health Sciences building, where we started nursing program on our campus. We had a great regional campus nursing program for, I think, 45, 50 years. So we leveraged that, and not everybody thought nursing would work on Oxford's campus, but it just didn't work, but it exploded. And so I mentioned the numbers yesterday, but we had just south of about 4,000 applications for nurses this year, and then we only have about 180 spots. And so it's the most competitive program on campus. And we'll come back to this, but the building was just recently named by the Cleveland Clinic the best healthcare system in the world. And so it's a great partnership, and I'll address that later on. And then we have the Lee and Rosemary Fisher College at Elm. And so the building's uptown behind the Community Arts Center, or maybe some of you remembered it as Ox College. And it's a little business incubator. We have this fantastic entrepreneurship program here at Miami. It's top 10 in the world for a decade and a half. And then we didn't want to why should all these companies go to the right and left coasts? We want to have a few here in Oxford. So we open up the space to give those students, faculty, and staff opportunities to stay here. And so it's often going as a sustainability company, a drone company, and if you were at the house this morning, you may have picked up a shade cream butter company. So really cool stuff going on. And Lee and Rosemary Fisher live in Oxford, and they were very generous to make this happen for us, and it's very exciting. And then there's Bachelor Hall. And if you were in there yesterday, it has got the wow factor. And so if you remember that building, you probably would classify it as one of the worst built buildings you've ever seen. I mean, I don't even know how to make it even sound any better than that. And it was a strange build. Don't get me wrong. Well, anyway, we renovated it, put $72 million into it, just opened in the spring, a soft opening, so that means we moved everybody in, and then all the classes will start in the fall. It's gorgeous. That's the atrium, and it was once just an open space in the middle, which was kind of a courtyard, and people always joked around that's where they used to go out and smoke. And since nobody's smoking today, we'll just cover it up and make this great interaction space. And so it is gorgeous. It's the largest investment in the humanity, as far as we can tell, in Ohio, in the humanities, that goes back to 50 years ago when we looked at the investments made. So it was done with the help of the state of Ohio and also donor support. It's gorgeous. You've got to pop your head in there. This is our Hamilton campus, and we were able to get this new building through a big grant from the county commissioners and the support of the city of Hamilton. It's on our Hamilton campus, and it's an advanced manufacturing hub, and it's super exciting. I'm going to come back to that because we have a new rendition of the Miami Regionals that I'll speak about in our new strategic plan. But the building's amazing. It's 400,000 square feet, and it's got a lot of great things going on in there around manufacturing, engineering, and a lot of partnerships with companies that co-locate equipment in there. That's a good picture, huh? And then, of course, our campus. There's been several things in the last decade, which I love to talk about. First, the Vets Memorial. More than 8,000 of our Miami graduates served in the military service, and 279 lost their lives. And so this is a memorial to all of them, and it's just great. It's over there on Spring Street. And then the Wayne Embry statue with the famous hook shot, yeah. his famous hook shot, and it's down there at Millette. It'll be moved to the new location once it's built. Then the McVay statue with the Cradle of Coaches, the youngest NFL football coach to ever win the Super Bowl, is down there, and that's fantastic. And then Tom Smith, a very generous donor, likes to find artists for us and donate sculptures, and so we had 3 beautiful sculptures on our campus, that's around campus, and so thanks to the generosity of Tom. And then our campaign and our endowment, there's lots of stuff up here, I'll just say it in words. So our campaign to date, we've raised, fantastic. I'm going to give you a little hint here. We're going to finish this thing off probably Q1 of this year, and so we're going to get to $1 billion, and we're super excited about that. And it was the boldest and the biggest campaign that we've ever undertaken here at Miami University. It was twofold the last campaign, and so it's very exciting. But on the endowment front, I think, which has been really disciplined investment, but we started off in 2016 at about nearly 450 million, and then today we're over 1.2 billion. And so we're in the $1 billion club, and there's only about 150 schools at most that have that scale of endowment out of the 1,000 schools in higher ed. So we're financially doing great. And we focused this campaign on academics, and so about 85% of the campaign is with that. And so here you go on the investments that we made as a summary, and these are the things that I discussed that are done now that you're seeing maybe for the first time. But our academic infrastructure, we put in nearly over 450 million in investment. Our campaign progress for academics, we've raised over 830 million, of which about 700 million is going towards academics, and a big chunk of that is scholarships. So it makes the Miami education possible for so many. And our endowment distribution, it was once, so what comes out of the endowment that we spend every year was once about, it was south of 15 million, and today we're spending 55 million of that payout on academics. And so your alma mater here is, this has been over $1 billion investment into academics here at Miami. So really exciting from that front. And then the new plan. And so we were able to push through our strategic plan, and all those great things came about because during COVID, the Board of Trustees said, Greg, you just got to figure out a way to do this, and we're not going to stop. And so we worked on the finances and made it all work. So while others were stopping construction and stopping new programming, we were building. And so as COVID and the pandemic ended, we're in really good financial position now, but also with a great portfolio of offerings and an amazing infrastructure. And so we were kind of finished up with that, and the board's like, okay, you got a year left on this, but you did it all, so get on with it. So do a new plan. And so that's what we did. And I think the thing about what we did this time was interesting. So with all the change going on, we first thought future back. So we said, what does 2035 look like? And then we said, how do we get ready for that future today? That was one thing. The second thing we thought about was present forward. And what that meant was, we know we have challenges. Everything's tighter than it's ever been before. We have to penny pinch and spend our money in the right way and prioritize. And so how do we do that in a time of challenge going forward? And that's present forward. And then, of course, past fulfilling. Sounds kind of status quo. But what we mean by that was that what got us here today? That we will never give up on Miami. It's the student-centered aspect of it. There's no doubt. We meet students where they're at and get them ready to graduate. There's no doubt about that. We have a teacher-scholar model where professors are great researchers, but also teach in the classroom with students. And we're not going to abandon that at all. We're going to keep that going and alive. So we put those things all three together, and we came up with some really big plans. So first, I love this one, and I got to apologize. I'm a physicist, so when I talk about quantum, I get excited. And there's just that. So in Ohio, the state of Ohio and Jobs Ohio made investments in what they called the innovation districts. in the 3 Cs. And so Cincinnati and Columbus and Cleveland all got big investments. And they're in the scale of the $500 million range, so really big investments. In Cleveland, there's a quantum computing strategy. So it's the fastest computers in the world that they have. Most nation states are trying to get a quantum computer. And I know Cleveland Clinic is kind of a bit like a nation state because of their international reputation. But it was really exciting for us. And so we went up there to talk to them. And they have all kinds of opportunities to pick whoever they want to work with. They can work with anybody they want. It's that kind of brand. And they chose Miami. And so we developed with Cleveland Clinic the first quantum computing degree program that was built out to build the workforce for the future in Cleveland. So there's Silicon Valley out west. There's 128 out east for startup and entrepreneurship. Well, in Cleveland, it's going to be almost like Superposition Alley. That's a quantum word, by the way. But it's going to be that. So we're really excited about that. So things are going great. And let me tell you a little bit about it. So you don't have to look too deeply into this, but I'll explain it into words. But a conventional computer, about every 2 years, the number of transistors that you can fit on a same size chip doubles. So your computing power goes up. And it's called Moore's Law. But how it scales in conventional computing, if you remember your math, it's 2 to the nth power. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 4 times 4 is 16. And it goes quickly on how much time you need to compute something. Well, the problems that we face today, especially in healthcare, they can take decades, they can take centuries, even for a supercomputer. But you look at the quantum computer, it turns that curve down and bends it flat so that things can get done in minutes, not decades or centuries. It's that fast. And so it's a huge tool for the future. And so we were picked to build out this curriculum. And I like to say I call it the Da Vinci Zone. So what kind of kid is going to come at 18 years old and become a quantum computer scientist? Well, the first thing you might think, it might be like James Crick, who was a physicist who then turned biologist after World War II and discovered the DNA. You may think of it as Feynman, the famous physicist at Caltech, who big time on quantum mechanics and on how it works in nature, but then goes into computing and gave the first theory of quantum computing. And then, or Turing, the father of computer science, who discovered just about everything you can in computer science, and then went into biology later on in his career. And we think about those three, and the quantum computer scientist today is going to be sort of an amalgamation of all three of those. And so we're calling it the Da Vinci student. So the curriculum's not for the lighthearted, believe me. It's a tough one, but it is an interesting one and very exciting one. And so it's cool here because you've got to be really good at math, and not just continuous math, but discrete math and linear algebra and probability and statistics. You've got to know fundamentals of computing just on the regular side, and then you've got to know quantum computing, and then you've got to know cybersecurity, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And it was interesting, when we worked with Cleveland Clinic, they knew our reputation around entrepreneurship. And they said, since these computer scientists are going to be working on the future of quantum in the world, there's going to be discoveries every day. We want all of our quantum computing scientists that you send up to Cleveland to be a little bit of entrepreneurship savvy too. So our students in this program also take entrepreneurship. So it's very exciting. And then students can do multiple things with it. They obviously want at Cleveland Clinic to have the life sciences and bioinformatics track, proteomics and genomics and DNA sequencing so that they can program there. But you can pick other areas like artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, et cetera. And then everybody has to do a quantum computing capstone project for at least a semester, probably 2. But nevertheless, we have them up at Cleveland Clinic this summer. We have 27 students working in Cleveland this year. And this is just our second summer starting, so we're super excited about that. So all good. And we were just awarded by the state of Ohio. We were selected by the state to have to host the Ohio Institute of Quantum Computing. So we're very excited about that. It involves everything. It involves AI and quantum computing, and it involves cybersecurity and quantum computing, data science and quantum computing, because quantum computing hits on everything and speeds up just about everything. So we're really excited about that. And then with the state money too, if you have any kids or grandkids that want to go into this area, the tuition's free. And so it's very exciting for the time being. And so we're going to try to keep that up and going. So we're going to lead in Ohio. And then we have created new partnerships, and one of the big ones is with Neomed. If you're from Northeast Ohio, that's the Northeast Ohio College of Medicine, and it's a fantastic school up there. And they're actually, for their 3rd and 4th year medical students, they're growing their program, so they're going to come down here to Southwest Ohio, and it's just really neat, and they're going to work at Christ Hospital for their clinical placements. And we've had a long relationship with Christ as well. So Miami Christ and Neomed are all together, and those medical students, they'll have access to everything here at Miami. We give them a card and treat them like a Miami graduate student, so they can go to the plays and the events and the games and stuff like that. So we're really excited to have them down here. And then also, in exchange for that in our partnership, Neomed takes 20 students of our graduates every year for their med school now. It's called the Early Assurance Program, and so we're super excited about that, and that'll probably even grow more in the future. So it's a great partnership. And then knowing in our partnerships that we needed to do more of it, we have a great one with Tri-Health. They do our student and our student athlete health. We have Stryker, who's been phenomenal. Spencer Stiles is one of our graduates, and he's a divisional president, and they outfitted our clinical health sciences building with state-of-the-art equipment. And then Lilly funds a leadership program out of our engineering school. And we also have these clusters of groups. So the Advanced Manufacturing Hub, we have 30 companies that work with us. Real quick. Paper Foundation, it's been a staple here at Miami for decades, 42 companies. And so we have those clusters. And then the latest new partner I got to mention is we're the educational partner for the Cincinnati Bengals. So hooday. And so it's really nice to see. I got to say, we have to get some improvements, too, this year on the Bengals. Because it's not funny. Because, you know, so every time the Bengals gets into the red zone, so when they're within the 20-yard line, if you've seen on TV, Miami is in the end zone. So we need more touchdowns, and our marketing budget goes up, just like that. So the deal gets better. And then our Hamilton campus, it's a regional campus, and there was a time and a place when there was far more students in this state where the regional campuses had a big role, and students could finish there or transfer in to the main campus. And with the demographics going down, we wanted to look to see how we could, re-envision what the regional campus is. So what's coming out of this is a Polytech Institute, university type of concept, which means the students will focus in on engineering technology or business and those type of things, the professional degrees, and it'll be out there. So what's the difference? It's highly experiential learning, so they learn by doing. Stakeholder collaboration, so the companies are involved in creating the curriculum with us, which is pretty cool. Cycle back, level up, and so we'll have all these certificates so you go work, you come back, go work, come back, and just keep going back and forth, or do it while you're working. Technology emphasis, as I mentioned, workforce readiness, and so our general electives will be connected to the workforce. So history and how it impacts the workforce will be a general elective, like kind of thing. Project management will be probably embedded in what we do in the social sciences. Technical writing, what we do in English. So it's a new model, and I don't know if you've seen this in the press, if you're reading it, but the Polytech universities are actually one of the few things in higher ed that's growing, and they've seen a growth of 16%. So students are moving towards these type of schools. And so other examples of schools like this, Worcester Polytech, Harvey Mudd, you have a lot of these schools that just focus in on that. So this will be a branch campus of ours, but we'll refocus what we offer. So it's going to be very exciting. And then the Altman Institute for the Humanities. So John Altman, Has always been passionate about that. He was a former board member when I started, and so he has a gift match out there. So if you're interested in the humanities, it'll be great for us. And then the farmer school curriculum, they did, looks all very complicated, but what they're doing is really cool. So we have these co-majors. It's essentially our double major. And so now you can major in anything, and then you can take the Farmer School of Business minor, and then if you're ambitious and you like it, you take the second minor, and then you get the second major with it. And so you can do whatever you want or put two things together that make a whole lot of sense. For example, psychology and business, you can go into neuromarketing. If you want to do English and business, you can go into executive communication, and biochemistry and business, maybe pharmaceutical sales. And so this is just getting launched in the fall, and we're really excited about that because the interest of students to study business, but at Miami, they also like to study everything else. And I'll give you examples of that as well. So we're trying to make as many of these double options for students as possible. Okay, there we go. And then we just launched our PhD in engineering and our PhD in computer science. And I want to tell you, if you do this, you go into a pretty competitive market space. And so we don't want to compete with like UC and OSU and Michigan and IU. It'd be a hard row to hoe to get to that point. So we made ours very unique, which I think is interesting. First is that students can do an internship as well, which is unheard of in graduate school, which we like that, so the flexibility. We take away, instead of doing the tests, we actually move them towards a research proposal, so they get that skill set on how to write what they're doing, and they have to defend the proposal for their research, not what they learned in the past 5 years. And so very exciting. And then soft skills and entrepreneurship is part of that. And then in their thesis, they have to address how their work impacts humanity as well. So it may be the greatest AI algorithm that anybody's ever created, but they're also going to have to talk about how that's going to impact in a positive way society. So we're super excited about that. Now, discovering the future. I'm getting thirsty. Hold on. See how I'm doing here on time. Oh, my goodness. All righty. So discovering the future. If you look at our research progress year over year, this graph is for external awards. So how much money comes in from largely the federal government or the state government to fund research proposals that funds our students and even funds our faculty as well. And so we've made great progress. There was kind of a hiccup in 2025, and so you know the federal government pulled back on research funding, but we're now back on track to being above $50 million a year, which is very exciting because we started off 10 years ago at $15 million. So the progress has been threefold plus. There's these classifications for schools, and the classifications are called R1 and R2. And it just depends on how much research that you do. So R1s are far more research active than R2s. And so Miami is an R2 institution. And if you look at who's in our sort of base here, Cleveland State, Akron, Wright State, and Bowling Green, where the other schools in Ohio are at R1s. And so we really wanted to move in that direction because it's not just graduate students, but about, well, roughly speaking, 2,000 to 3,000 students a year at Miami at the undergraduate level do research. And so we needed to bolster this. And so our numbers today, if you want to be an R1, you need $50 million in research expenditures, and you need to graduate 70 PhD students. And so we've always been below that in the middle. But this year, our numbers that we reported were 53 million, and we also graduated over 80 PhD students. And so super exciting. We have to wait until they don't do it every year, so we got to keep our numbers up. And then next time they do this assessment, which is a year or two, we'll be in that mix. And so what is interesting when you think about it, when you're trying to build research up and have a great experience for students, both undergrads and grads, is that you need a critical mass You got to have faculty that just are, well, they want to be the best of the best. There's no doubt about that. And they got to collaborate. And when you have those things coming together, you get success. And it's too hard to have one of everything these days because you don't get enough leverage to really make a big impact. And so when you have these elements coming together, you get external grants, you got great, phenomenal teachers in the classroom that bring their research into the undergraduate teaching. You have student research and discovery, papers, books, patents that increase our reputation. And so I wanted to give you a few examples of this. And the other thing is, if you look at the top teaching schools in the country, undergraduate institutions, Miami's 12th nationally for all schools, and they're number 2 from public institutions. But if you look at those schools that are undergraduate teaching ranked, the top 50, 70% are in that R1 category. So it was important for us to hit that metric because it makes a big impact on our undergraduates as well. I'm going to tell you some stories and some cool stuff. And so here's our professors in the humanities that got great book placements in Oxford and the Chicago Press. Steve Tuck is on Pompeii, so he looked at the survivors after the eruption there and how they built new systems around government and commerce and society and governance after the explosion of the volcano. And it was once thought that there were no survivors. And you talk to them and how the digital humanities and the AI searching, it made this book possible for him. Because before he couldn't do it, and now he did it. And then we have the book Flowers, Guns, and Money on Poinsett, who was a big-time statesperson in the 1800s. And he was interesting from South Carolina and then was in Mexico as an ambassador. And guess what he did? Poinsett? He sent back clippings of poinsettias to the U.S., and then they became something here. So there's really great scholarship going on in the humanities. And then we have our regional campus engineering technology professors with our business professors, and they're doing a great work on gamification of safety in companies. And so how to train people around safety using gaming. And so that was a great grant. Then we have the Scripps Gerontology Center here at Miami, which has been around for more than 100 years. And they bring in over $3 million a year in external research. And Professor Abbott's there in the front, and she leads it as the director of that. It's always been a pillar of excellence here at Miami. They were also heavily utilized during COVID for retirement communities to look at infections and do those studies. And then we have cardiorespiratory fitness in kinesiology and health, and so 3 professors there have a National Institute of Health grant to look at that. And they also look at things such as inactivity as a child, how that impacts your health as an adult. So really cool questions they're trying to answer there. And then this one is our vision team, so they work on vision, and they have all kinds of great animal models. There's a little lizard called the newt. There's the zebrafish. There's chick eggs. But the cool thing about these animal models, if you poke their retina, it grows back in 3 weeks. If you poke their kidney, they get a new one in a couple of weeks. And so they're trying to understand the stem cells, how it works, such that we can use that for humans, as our stem cells don't work that way, obviously. But it's really a great group, and they have over nearly $9 million in external research funding. Really exciting. And then there's the cool group of physicists. So they do, we have the quantum computing going on, but they're working on the next generation of the quantum computer. And so they do great research around the big thing here in quantum is that right now the computer has to be be chilled to temperatures that's near absolute zero. So they often say about Cleveland that Cleveland, Ohio now is the coldest place on earth. So you got to use this liquid helium to do this stuff. And so the big holy grail that someday, could you ever make a room temperature one that you all could afford? And so they're working on those materials, and so it's really cool. And then there's our chemists that do protein folding in biochemistry. And they have great money, $13.8 million. They're probably the most productive in terms of external research here at the university. And they work on protein folding, which is always related to either disease, ailments, or healthy living and so forth. So very basic research. That behind them is a big magnet. It's called a nuclear magnetic resonance. And they can put these molecules in there and understand their dynamics just by watching it behave in a magnetic field that you perturb a little bit. So really cool stuff. And we always joke around because as a physicist, we always make fun of somebody. And so for us, we make fun of chemists. So if you look at that, like, they look really cool, right? And these guys are holding plastic models, yeah. And then our sustainability. If you're an alum and you haven't heard this story, you'd be very proud of it. It's just amazing. And so we had a 3-part strategy over nearly 20 years moving this forward with a lot of great progress recently. And so we did 3 strategies. Strategy 1 was we converted all of our steam on campus to hot water. Steam leaks everywhere, and you get a lot of loss. And so you put a lot of stuff in the ground that you love to use because it's just leaky. And so when you convert it to hot water, you get tremendous savings and efficiency. And so we did that, and so 71% of our campus is now off of steam and on water. It's 14 miles of piping that we had to do. The second area was geothermal, and it's really cool stuff. So you basically use the ground as a thermal battery. And so in the summer, we take all the heat out of the buildings and we plug it into the ground and warm it up. And in the winter, we take that heat back and we warm up the buildings. And so it's a perfect geographical location for that. And we have over nearly 1,500 wells, which go down into the ground several hundred feet. And then if you're interested, the coefficient of performance is called the work function sometimes in physics there. And so if you put 1 unit in of energy, you get 3 out in one season, and the other season we get 6 times out. So it's very efficient, and it saves us a lot of money. We have 5 buildings that are gold LEED standards and 31 buildings that are silver LEED. So we're really efficient there. And then the graph shows that since we started back in 2008, when it was first approved by the Board of Trustees, that we've reduced our carbon footprint by more than 50%. And I'm going to show you this compared to others. This is huge for any organization, so we're quite excited about how much progress we've made. And then, if you look, you should go over to Western Campus. There's a brand new solar field over there, and it's awesome. And I'm going to talk about who helped us do that in a second. But what you don't know is that underneath the solar panels is geothermal. So we're using that property for 2 different things all at once. And so it's really neat. And we wanted this solar field to be a park. So it's called the Mitchell Sustainability Park, and it's really awesome. Now this here, I wanted to show it because it's our first foray into solar. And so if you look at the energy that we've taken off, so the gray is solar, and of course you can only use it during the daytime. There's no sun at night. And you can see there, we've clipped off about 15% of our budget energy. But I want to mention that that's just the energy piece. But when you think about it, is that the most expensive time to buy energy is electricity during the day. And so our budget is much bigger savings than that. And so it's really neat what we're doing there. We'll be doing more solar projects in the future. And it was this solar field. You got to go over there. Please go see it. It's Sharon and Graham Mitchell, our alums. Sharon was a VP of research at Procter & Gamble at the end of her career. And Graham Mitchell was at the Ohio EPA for many, many years. And they did a principal gift to make that solar field happen. And we're super excited about that. And I love to tell the story about Sharon because Sharon did this solar field, right? And then if you look back into 2008, Sharon was the chair of the Board of Trustees of Miami University. And it was that year they approved the geothermal investment. And so it came full circle, so we're quite excited about our progress there. And there's a couple of things. First, we're a Gold Stars campus, so we're number 16th ranked in the country in the last version of rankings for the most sustainable campuses. This is one rating system. The next thing this year, we won the Climate Luminary Honors Award for the solar cell, so it was a great national recognition for Miami. And then, which we love, that Scope 1 reductions are how people take what they, if you burn coal on campus or whatever you do on your campus, if you replace that with something alternative, that's Scope 1. And so they looked around the country and they did a scientific study, and so Miami is number 5th in terms of reducing its on-campus on-campus use of energy. So we're super excited about that progress, so really good stuff there. And then empowering our future, the students. And so the good news here is that over the past 10 years, and it keeps getting better and better and better, our students continue to compete at the highest level and get the most national recognition. The big awards, Fulbright, Truman, Goldwater, Marshall, Astronaut, Reagan, we're winning those at a big clip. We had a big year at 37 and 25 this year. They cut back on a few of those. We're going to be up again next year, I'm sure. But if you look at our 3-year average and or any year, we actually outperform other schools in Ohio based on absolute number. Not per capita, but number. So we get over awarded these things in a positive way. And then Phi Beta Kappa is the biggest honorary academic sorority around student excellence. And you can see this. It's been amazing to see 80, and then this year we had the record high of 209. And so they got to, I think they got to be in the top 2% of their class. And so we keep getting better and better and better and being able to honor these students. So our students are doing great. And just a couple of examples. So Mackenzie Love, she's an inclusive education major here at Miami, and she won the National Braille Challenge this year. And she was actually the first Ohioan ever to win this national competition, so it was great. Then our Goldwater scholars, we had 3 this year. It's unheard of. But guess what? They're all physicists. I was so excited. It was great. You know, you hate to brag about things, but what the hell, you know? So, yeah, it's hard to get 3, and then it's hard to all be in the same department, and oh my God, just exciting. And then the Miami students have been phenomenal. They celebrated their 200th anniversary this year, but they also got the Mark of Excellence Award from the National Professional Journalist Society, and so quite happy about that. And then Bridget Stafford, so we're not a NIU ever since we started here at Miami. We wanted to do health as our sort of a platform. And so we did different things over the years, but what we've been doing that's stuck with it is we have these things called exercise boot camps in the backyard at Lewis Place. And a small number now would be about 200 students that show up on a Saturday morning to work out with us. A bigger number, our record was this year, we had 500. And we squeeze them in, shoehorn them in the back of Lewis Place and work out. And then we have breakfast afterwards at the house. But for the last 4 years, we use a student instructor to do Zumba. And the last 4 years, Bridget Stafford, she was a rec center instructor here, and she just took it on, and she never missed anything. She came every single one. We do 4 per semester, so 8 a year. And I just wanted to share this video with you. She just graduated, and she was just phenomenal. It's the kind of the story and the Miami kids you want to have around. Here you go. So, very fun. So we do different things. If you know Tabata, we we do Zumba too. So Zumba is kind of like you dance. You want to show them how you do it, Renate? No? Okay. So you dance, and so it's like it's like workout, jazzercise, whatever you want to call it, and so we're doing it one day, and this kid that I know pretty well, because he's a presidential fellow, like comes over and starts doing it next to me, and he goes, President Crawford, I'm going to come by you because you make me look good. So that was that. I still graduated on my own. So Grace Koo, she's with her professor there, Professor Lee of statistics, and she was a presidential fellow for us, the top students here at Miami. Astronaut scholar, so highly accomplished, does research galore as an undergraduate, but she also is a phenomenal violinist. She was the first violinist this year, and she was the first non-music major to be the concert master. So just incredible. That's how students at Miami combine things. Just highly talented in everything that they do. And then Emily Wang, I tell you, it's hard to even explain this because I call it the trifecta. And she got 3 national fellowships. Astronaut, the Beckman, and the Goldwater. It's hard to get one, right? We get 25 to 35 a year for every student. She attracted all 3. And then she has publications in American Chemical Society already as an undergraduate. And then also nature is one of the hardest to get into ever. So she's going to graduate as an undergraduate with this research. And so she's off to UVA for graduate school. So just a great student. Miami University Orchestra won this year the American Prize in Orchestra Performance. And so a big national award for the excellence in music here at Miami. And then we had Will Haygood. You probably know Will. He wrote lots of books about Sugar Ray Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, Sammy Davis Jr., The Butler, just on. And his latest book was released on Vietnam, and it's called The War Within a War, and it's about blacks in Vietnam. And so we did the launch, the national launch here at Miami, and we did a big event in Hall Auditorium to a full crowd. And the book was free, of course, but we were able to bring back one of the nurses and one of the surgeons that served in Vietnam that are in his book. And so it was a great conversation. And if you want, there's a book outside for you waiting on the way out if you want to take that home. It's a fantastic history of Vietnam. And then let's talk about athletics for a little bit. Kind of end here shortly. And so again, we had a great year this year. Basketball was 31-0. It's just an exciting season, of course, and then it was and I don't know what, it was probably maybe like around 18 or 20-0. Like I would get so happy when we won, and then like an hour later I'd have anxiety about the next game, because every game was bigger than the last game, and that's how it was. And they just hung in there. It was awesome in terms of the pressure too. That's a lot of pressure to take. So what an exciting year. And then the game in Dayton was phenomenal. It was our home crowd. It was a great placement for the tournament, of course. Just super happy there. And the swim team did the Speedos there as well. And so that got a lot of attention. I think all you guys can buy Speedos in the bookstore if you want. Yeah, they got very popular around here. Baseball was MAC champs this year, the regular season. Women's basketball was tournament and regular season champs. They had a great year. Field hockey. This program was amazing. MAC champs and then the MAC tourney champs. They were 10th nationally ranked, and they were in the Elite 8 this year. So our furthest penetration in ever. Synchronized skating, national champions. And men's golf, wins the MAC championship. So super exciting. And then the MAC conference has the awards for the overall performance in men's and women's. And so we took home both trophies this year, and it's great. Yeah. We go to the event, and then we get to take these home, and everyone's jealous from the other schools. And it's the second year in a row we won both. Yeah, so really cool. And then David Saylor's here, our AD. Is he here still? He's somewhere? Well, anyway, he gets these trophies in Cleveland, and then he has to, like, take them home. And so it's ridiculous. He puts them in the back seat, and he puts seat belts around them. He takes such good care of them. Like they're going to get hurt. I don't know. And just to give you an example, our student athletes, the College of Arts and Sciences has a big chunk. Education Health Society is the largest, and then Farmer's pretty big as well. And so they've been with the 3.0 GPA for a long time, and 18 of the 19 teams have a GPA above 3.0, so very exciting. We're almost done here. And so there's the new arena that'll be coming soon, and we'll have this done probably in the fall of 28, and it's going to be super exciting, and there's more coming in that area, and it's going to be awesome, so it's looking good. The value creation of the Snoop Dogg Bowl this year in Arizona was $447 million, and so apparently when Snoop tweets something, people listen, so. It was great, and it was 2 years back to back. And then the publicity value for our men's basketball team this year was over $120 million, so the numbers really add up. And then One Miami Weekend, Renate and I started this when we got here to honor our faculty, students, and staff, and so it's all free to our community once a year. We do it over the weekends when we have a doubleheader, and then we do it also with a doubleheader, of course, with hockey. So there's 4 games to go to. But in addition to that game, we had 3 sellouts of Millett Hall for men's basketball. So it was a beautiful sight to see that. Really cool. And then Ron Harper, you probably know Ron, played for the Cavs and the Bulls. And we honored him with an honorary PhD. So it was pretty cool. And just finally here, 2 things I want to share with you. First is that there'll be a documentary on the Cradle of Coaches that'll be launched this fall, and so we're super excited about that, and many of you know the big names down there, and our bragging rights that we've had 3 Super Bowl winning coaches that graduated Miami. Nobody else has ever had that, right? We had Weeb Eubank, Sean McVay, and John Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh was our commencement speaker this year, so it was just fantastic. In any event, I'm going to give you a little snippet here, but this documentary will come out, and it'll be on a major network, and more to come there. But
Leadership is the ability to inspire people to say, that's the dude I want to stand side by side with.
Leadership is allowing guys to be their best. Everybody's different. Miami coaches understand as well. You don't coach anybody the same.
Some people are natural leaders, but teaching and developing leaders, I think, is one of the best things you can do.
That's another reason why Miami has thrived the way it has, not only for students, but also for people in continuing education and coaching as well. Guys who want to come coach there see what their career path could be like, looking at the people who've been there before them.
This is what Miami has. There's a culture that's going on there as well. We just had somebody who became the chairman of Starbucks who's a Miami grad, another great business leader.
I'll talk to business leaders, CEOs. I'm amazed at how many of them went to Miami, Ohio.
The experience that Miami provides is what has bred these great cradle of coaches.
so stay tuned, you'll love it. And finally, I want to end with this. And so the men's glee club here at Miami, if you've ever seen they're just phenomenal. It's hard to even know what word to use to describe them. They're awesome. And then also how the community just keeps coming back year over year. And I'm sure there's many glee clubbers in here that come back and sing with the group. And so anytime you ask anything of them, they always do it. And one of the things this year, if you haven't seen it yet, they have their first music video online. You got to go check it out. It's phenomenal, and it's got a great story behind it. So read about how it all happened and how they got the piano into the river down on 17 Mile Trail. That's what you got. Here's Miami University Men's Glee Club.
Who let the dogs out? Who?
So there you have it. It's great to have you all here. It's 12 o'clock now, so we'll just let you escape and go off and enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and we'll see you at the parade today. How about that? Love and honor.